from our government. But real power is wielded by the people. And if the people choose to wield that power, then that's how we get the society, the better world that we are all intending and creating and building. So I just want to thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all for continuing to fight, because let me tell you, times are hell right now. They are incredibly bleak. But the reality is that the fight for Medicare for all, for instance, we've been fighting this one whether or not it's been a Democratic government or a Republican government. We've been fighting this whether or not our democracy has been strong, or if it's been in the tailspin that we're seeing it in right now. But the warnings that we have put up, had they been heeded, we could imagine that we might not be here where we are today. If people had organized bold plans like Medicare for All, where we see people right here in the community where we have world-changing medicine but medical debt, where we have the largest employer is our medical system, but people who have to go to a food pantry to eat, where we have people who are dying of curable diseases, and we're in a city where we have the largest black maternal mortality and infant rate in the developed world. If we had heeded the warnings about our need to fight and win a Medicare for all, then we would have a democracy that was ready to stand up to this moment. So when I say why it's important that we continue to not just fight but prioritize Medicare for all in the wealthiest nation on earth, is because the reality is that we can't fight against fascism if we are sick and dying. We can't fight back against fascism if we can't go to the doctor when we're sick. We can't fight back if we can't take time off when we're sick. We've lived through now a pandemic. We're now living through not just the beginning, but the middle, and then coming into the deep stages of fascism. And we are still a country where everyday citizens can't access the care that they need. Where everyday citizens are living through not only that we not only have Medicare for all, but even the programs, the meager handouts that we were already given. I don't call them handouts because I don't want anybody to quote me as saying handouts, because Medicaid's not a handout.
Thank you.
Medicaid's not a handout. But we know that it is not the full breadth of what we deserve or what we need. But right now, 3 million Pennsylvanians stand to lose Medicaid coverage. Thinking about kids, adults with disabilities. Couple that with losses to SNAP benefits, and we're looking at a crisis of people not only not being able to get care, but not even being able to eat. And then couple that with the crisis of not being able to put a roof over our heads because of the housing crisis. We need Medicare for all today.
Yes.
We should not live in a country where your employer gets to determine whether or not you get to seek care. We shouldn't live in a community, in a society where you might not be able to go and do an entrepreneurial job or go out and start your own business because you're worried about whether or not you'll be able to care for your child with a pre-existing condition. We shouldn't live in a society where seniors are worried about losing all of their benefits, all of their earned benefits, from Social Security to Medicaid to Medicare, in a society where they've worked their asses off for decades and then don't know if they'll get to live the rest of their life in dignity. This is why we need to fight for Medicare for all on today. But if for no other reason, because we should be ashamed. Because every other country, every other what we call Western country has already figured this out. We have figured out how to keep their constituents healthy and educated. Because they can get free college and free health care at the same time at the point of service. And the United States is trying to figure out whether or not we are okay if somebody has to decide between sending their kids to school fed or getting their diabetes medicine. Or getting a COVID shot. Right now, we already know. Claire mentioned it. I think you all know, because I think you all have organized around it. We have a single-payer health care bill. It exists. It exists in the House. I don't want to speak for the Senate, but we have it. And we already know that we have a number, not a small number. We have a large number, actually, of Democrats who exist on this. But what we need is that fire to make sure that people all over this country, this isn't a Democratic concept. This isn't a liberal or a progressive proposal, right? This is common sense. This is common sense. And we need to help my colleagues who truly, they need to help with lots of things. We need to help my colleagues understand that there is nothing partisan about caring for our neighbors. Because our neighbors live in rural and urban and suburban communities and ex-urban ones. They're black and they're white and they're brown. They're Christian and they're atheist and they're Jewish and they're Muslim. They're young. They're all genders. They are Democrat and Republican and independent. We should be about the business of caring for each and every one of them because they live in each and every one of our districts. We should be about the business of holding corporations accountable because I don't believe that whether or not I get the appropriate amount of care should come down to some CEO sitting up in a tower making millions of dollars. That ain't the country that I want. That's not the country that you deserve. And I think that even right now, even as we are dealing with everything that is coming down, don't lose track of all that we are fighting for. Because we actually, not only do we have the energy and the attention to talk about all of the ways in which we are being harmed right now, but we have the manpower to do it. Because there are more of us than them. And the power of the people is still greater than the people of power. But we cannot sit around and allow our neighbors to go unorganized. We can't sit around and allow election cycles to go and pass us by without candidates who believe in Medicare for each and every one of us. Not Medicare for all who want it. Not Medicare for some. Not Medicare for the rich. Not Medicare for the employee. Not Medicare for all. For each and every one of us. That is within our reach. And it is the thing that we can organize about right now that can excite not just our base. Because it ain't just, we're past exciting our base. If we can excite our base and the Democrats can't respond, then we got a problem. We have a democracy problem. So let's remind them that us not having Medicare for all on today was the first, not the first, one of the first signs of a democracy problem. Money in politics was the first. But this is the second, because we know that a majority of Americans believe that they should be able to get health care. A majority. So I'm here today to continue to reaffirm my commitment to fighting for this, to organizing inside and outside, to fighting back against all of the misinformation and disinformation that we have seen come down about Medicare for all, come down about fighting against corporate greed and fighting against employer-backed health care that doesn't serve people who can no longer work. But I cannot do that alone. So I'm going to finish where I ended. We need you. We need each and every one of you to help us to get there. So PA 12, you already know where your member of Congress stands. But we got a number of congressional districts around us, and we're going to have to go and get them. So let's go and get them. Let's make sure that we don't have to wait for disasters before we get Medicare for people in communities that are already on the front lines. Let's make sure that we don't have to wait for another pandemic before we can meet basic needs around prescription drug costs. Let's make sure that we don't have to wait for our democracy to totally collapse before our country wakes up to what we should have done decades ago. Thank you for being here today.